Hi, I'm Dre. I'm your mindset coach and mentor change. I want to welcome you to another one of our get togethers. Today, we are going to discuss how to change your life. Most professionals want to change something about their life, but they are discouraged by the fears and self doubts that their false beliefs create. That is why I created a process so that you can be confident in your abilities to accomplish your goals, to accomplish resolutions, and be confident in your ability to become the champion of your dream life. Today, we're actually going to pull these 7 techniques from my book, Champion of Change, The 7 Laws of Change. And it is a completely full breakdown of everything that you need to know, both from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, even some of an emotional standpoint, when it really comes to creating change in your life. And the reason that we had to go in such a deep level is because when you really think about it, why is it that 60% of the population makes a New Year's resolution to change something in their life every single year, but less than 8% actually make it through the end of the year? And the answer is very simple. It comes down to how much planning, how much motivation, and how much discipline that you focused on. I find that when people focus a lot on discipline and motivation, they end up burning out. And the reason is because those are exhaustible resources. You would do better to have a plan in place and understand the overall mindset shift that you need so that you're able to operate outside of these exhaustible resources. That is why about 30 days after people start the resolution, about 60% of the people that made one drop out by the next month. Less than 30 days, 60% of people quit the resolution. And it's because they started and have only been operating within a willpower, discipline, mindset approach. And because those are exhaustible resources, and we'll get into that a little bit later, you understand why it is that people can only go about 30 days when you're only operating with in your mental energy. And so I want to go over a lot of these techniques that you'll be able to use where we almost automate some things where you're not using a lot of your willpower, where you're not using a lot of your discipline, so that you're able to save them just for those emergencies. And we all know there is some sort of emergency that will happen. So the first law is the law of concept. And in that, you make your plans, you understand the overall vision, you set your intention, and you spend some time just really researching what it is that it's going to take for you to accomplish your goals. And I like this place because a lot of us, when you think about the changes we want to make, we have really big goals that we want to make and accomplish in our lives. And I think that that's exciting. But with that said, we end up spending a lot more time deciding what TV we're going to buy than we do how we're going to actually accomplish the goals that we set. And so when you want to create the lifestyle that you're trying to accomplish, you have to start by getting your mind to understand, hey, we're going to make a change. And it's important to start by outlining how realistic this is, how long it's going to take, maybe research some people that have accomplished some of these goals in the past, see what they had to do, and see maybe what things you can replicate. Because we don't want to reinvent the wheel, and you also want to, as I mentioned, introduce your mind to a lot of these changes. When you don't do this, what happens with most of us is you just come out of the gate and you want to make some changes in your life. Well, your mind is like, whoa, 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 whoa. Those things I used to love, those are rewards that you're taking from me. And even though they may be self destructive, like excessive drinking or smoking or overeating and some desserts and things like that, even if it has to do with your overall career, where you have these goals and ambitions that you actually want to completely change your career, that you are looking to maybe go back to school, start a profession of a different kind, you want to network, whatever it is that you want to do, even though you may not actually enjoy some of the things that are going on, the reality is because you've been doing it so long, on a subconscious level, that means that you're enjoying it, that it is your comfort zone. It's something that you find pleasure in. So when you take the time to come up with a plan, when you research the activities that you're going to have to do, it really opens your mind up to the possibilities, where your mind is slowly thinking, I may like this. Like, this isn't all that bad. And that is a part of the thing that I think most people get wrong right out the gate is they jump right into the change and they're only operating with motivation and willpower, and that's why they have to stop within 30 days. But when you do the research and you slowly get your mind acclimated, now you're going to see how it starts to really help you and make it a little bit easier. We're starting to grease the tracks. So, I'm a big fan of things like vision boards, and I do enjoy the fact that people do like positive affirmations. But I do want you to understand that you have to make sure these things are realistic. Don't say I'm going to wake up with $1 million tomorrow. Maybe say I'm working towards that if your goal has to do with money. If your goal has to do with a certain job, it has to do with a certain company that you want to work at, then I would rather you say, I'm working towards getting that job. I'm making plans. I'm putting things in place to get that job. Don't say I'm going to have that job in a month, but you haven't really done any research to see how realistic that is. And you may end up saying, well, I have to actually get this certification or I have to have that expertise. Then you really start to understand what it takes. And this is all what you want to do within the law of concept. Number two, we have the law of consciousness. And it goes really well with the law of concept. You'll know that well, you won't know, but you may have noticed that the first two have to do with your mindset. And we really want to start there because that is the foundation of any change that you want to make in your life. So when you talk about the law of consciousness, this is the idea that you have a certain amount of focus, a certain amount of attention that you're able to exhibit in your daily interactions. And because these are also exhaustible resources, your mind actually works kind of an autopilot where it blocks out a lot of information. One of the common examples that people use, you may have heard it, where you go buy a new car and the day before you rarely saw the car on the road, and the day after you bought it, you see the car everywhere. And it's not that everyone bought the car with you, it's just the idea that your filters have changed, that your mind in this automatic filter, by you taking a step towards your goal and bought a new vehicle, your mind opened up and changed the parameters. And in the law of consciousness, we activate that ourselves when you combine it with the law of concept, where you're spending a lot of time researching, you're visualizing yourself in this new life and this new career and this new role, and it's slowly starting to become to your mind the real reality. Where if you think about it, think of it this way. If you've ever been to a movie and it was really emotional, have you ever cried at a movie? And you're like, yeah, I have. Well, did you think that that actually happened to anyone? Well, no, you didn't. But because your mind has difficulty separating what is fact and fiction, what is real and fake, it reacts the same way. So you, in a conscious level, completely understand this movie is not real, this is not happening, no one died, everybody's okay, they all went home after this filming. But because it's a good storyline, you allow yourself to fall into the story where you start rooting for people, you start feeling bad when they don't win, and you find that these are elements of a really good story. And you don't really notice it on a conscious level because there's some general rules of story writing. But I can guarantee you, if you've ever been to a bad movie, it snaps you out of that subconscious back into reality, and you're like, man, this movie's bad, this movie's garbage. So understand that whatever you're doing, whatever you're kind of living through, whether it's reality or fiction, it is real to your mind. And so if you were to visualize yourself doing certain activities every day, you're going to see some of the positive results as if you were physically doing it. And there are studies, and I'll put a link on the show notes, where it talks about some people who clean this hotel, and they asked them if they thought they were healthy and exercised. And then they did some of the vital testings, and they said no for the most part, and then their vitals sort of matched. Well, then they showed them some information that says, well, technically what you do on your daily basis, that counts as exercise. And they showed half of them this stats where half of them were like, okay, this is pretty cool. And as a result, they continued doing the exact same thing. They didn't make any other changes. No one got a gym membership or changed their overall diet. But the half that understood that it was linked to exercise, they actually lost a couple pounds. And that's really how powerful your mind is. There's other studies that talk about the placebo effect. And you may have been led to believe that placebo is just the idea that you lie to someone and then they believe it and then you have positive results. But it actually goes much deeper than that. We're actually to a point in science now where we're starting to look at what is called open placebo. And what that means is you tell the person ahead of time, there's nothing in this pill. Absolutely nothing at all. But we want you to take it anyways. And you find that what ends up happening is the same thing ends up happening where the person has these positive reactions as if they were given medicine. And the reason that studies are now saying is it's sort of a cycle that you go through. So just the idea that your mind is like, okay, I'm sick. Well, you call the doctor. I went to the doctor. The doctor wrote a prescription. So in your mind's eye, this issue is solved. And then it starts to create that reality. It starts to react in that way. And some of these illnesses, they go away. I've seen studies where they used acupuncture that didn't really prick through and they ended up just kind of like retracting when it touched the person. I've seen studies where they told them that they're going to give them knee surgery and they made the incision, but they did not clean any of their knee ligaments up. I mean, when I tell you it's amazing the stuff that you can create with your mind, I'm telling you it is absolutely incredible. So you want to make sure that you get your mind on board ahead of time, and that's what we start with in these first two laws, because I'm telling you, this is the foundation. This is where most people are messing up. This is what causes most of us not to be able to accomplish our resolutions and why less than 10% actually make it through the end of the year. It has to do with the fact that you haven't gotten your mind on board and your mind is still operating on the old RAM, where maybe it's like Windows 1999 or something, where it's just doing its best and its understanding is that you still like this stuff, that this stuff still matters to you, so it shows you that stuff. And the last example I'll give you on that is when I go to the grocery store, right? And because your mind is trying to keep you alive and there's so much information you can take in, it wants you to keep from going insane. It only shows you the stuff that you care about. Generally, stuff that you've either purchased in the past or stuff that you wrote on your grocery list. Well, my daughter, she has a different filter. She has different parameters. So when I walk through the store, the things that I see are completely different than what she sees. So if you're saying that there's 1,000 things and you only see like 10 of them, the 10 things that I see are different than her 10 things. And one time we went to the store and she was like, "Dad, Hello Kitty." And I was like, "There is no Hello Kitty in the juice aisle." And she just kept saying it. So I look around and there was this Hello Kitty with some sort of like bottle top. And I was like, I've never seen that before. Because I'm not interested in Hello Kitty. I think that those are probably a little expensive, so I don't usually get those items. And then 5 minutes later, we were walking to the checkout. And I just picked a random aisle, so I'm walking through it. And then she screams out, "Hello Kitty." And I look and I'm like, there's no way Hello Kitty is here again. But she was. This time she had noticed the Hello Kitty shampoo bottle. Or maybe a bubble bath. But I think you get the point that your filters are going to show you what you believe, what it believes matters to you. And so if you want your filters to show you what is in your new life, the change that you were trying to create, then you're going to have to take some steps to change your filters by introducing some of these concepts into your life. Like if you want to change professions, start reading some books about that profession. If you are trying to get promoted, start reading some content about people getting promoted or some of the certifications that people have in your certain job. Start reading this stuff so that your mind will start showing this to you, because there's only so much information, so much attention that you're able to absorb without exhausting that resource, or B, just kind of driving yourself a little crazy, because it is a lot of information. If you really think about every color, every texture, every light, every person, every tree, every grass, every flower, every car passing you by, I mean, I can go on. Your mind just blocks most of that stuff out. It's why when you're driving, you're not paying attention, you kind of come back to and you've already exited and you're halfway home, because your mind just drove on autopilot. There's some things that you're able to teach yourself, and I really want you to spend some time in the mindset phase so that you're able to successfully change your life. Law number 3 is checks. And this builds on the idea of us not using motivation or willpower discipline, and you're simply going to put the processes in place to automate the results that you want. If you want to study for some certification 1 hour every single day, go ahead and set the room up. Nothing else is in that room. This is the only room that you can go in to study, where you start to automate it. And you think of like Pavlov's dog, right? Where as soon as you see the room, as soon as you sit down, your mind just automatically is like, okay, we're going to study. I'm excited to study. And for those that aren't familiar with Pavlov's law, it's just basically this doctor, he took his dog and he like gave him dog food and he kind of like rang a bell. And eventually the dog synced with the bell to recognize that I'm getting food. And so just ringing the bell, it ended up making the dog kind of salivate because it just expected the food to come. So you want to get to that point with whatever change and whatever action that you're trying to make in your life. And then if maybe your action has less to do with you passing an exam or doing something physically, if it has to do with maybe you eating differently or something like that, then realistically, a great check and process would just be to throw away all the food that you don't want to eat. Because if it's in your house, I'm sorry, you're going to eat it at some point. And so you just want to go ahead and be honest with yourself and throw it away. And even if you have a moment of weakness, because that's a part of the checks, right? It's the idea that I don't want to use up my mental energy so that I feel weak and I give in, i.e., I wake up every morning, I eat oatmeal for breakfast, I have a salad for lunch, and then sometime around like 9 o'clock, I eat a whole bag of chips and a whole bunch of candy. It's because you've exhausted all of your mental energy. You've exhausted all of your willpower. So all that's left now is you revert back to what is normal for you. And there's actually a pretty cool study where they talk about three judges and, well, one judge and three kind of like panelists. And the panel had like a prosecutor, a probation officer, and I think like a psychiatrist or something like that. And basically, what they did is they just reviewed like 1,500 cases from this one judge, and they found anytime he saw a case in the AM, he was more likely to grant them probation. If he saw the case in the PM, when his mental energy was drained, he was more likely to deny probation and send them back to prison. In the judge's scenario, the safe choice is to send the criminal back to prison. It takes mental energy to examine a complete case and decide that a past criminal deserves to be free. And so you just really want to understand that whatever your normal is what you revert back to when your mental energy is gone. And that's what makes change so difficult. So I really want you to be able to solidify these changes in your life. And that's going to require you to make it as easy as possible to do what you want to do and make it as difficult as possible to not do what you don't want to do. And so you just kind of want to keep that in mind. Number four is you have the law of charge. And this is the idea that I'm going to charge other people with responsibilities within me accomplishing the changes I want to make in my life. So accountability is a great tool and you use it every day. I don't know if you're aware of it, but just think of if your coworker or me, I asked you for a report, how much effort you'd put into it versus if the CEO asked you for that same report. If the CEO asks you, you are going to be more motivated. You're going to be like, oh my goodness, this is my opportunity. I'm going to crush this. I'm going to show him or her how amazing the work is that I do. And just understand that that is accountability. Just the idea of the CEO looking at your report changed the way that you did the calculations and the performance and all the bells and whistles that you added. The same as if you were in college and then your parents were like, oh, I want to come visit you. And you're like, oh my goodness, I got to clean up all my house, or at least all the rooms that they're going to go into. And you may have had stuff that you've been procrastinating on for weeks, but now you're motivated to do it. And so that is why, obviously, it's a great idea to, obviously, it's a great idea to have a coach. And I'm not just saying this because I am your mindset coach, but just genuinely speaking, if you have that accountability, you will see the positive results. And the reason is we don't like to let people down. When you think about the fear of judgment, what is that? It's the way that we're being perceived by others. If someone sees us in a positive light, we want to keep that positive light. And this ends up causing people pleasing and other issues when it's on the negative end, but on the positive end, it also helps with your accountability. So if you can have a coach, or if you can have a mindset group, or if you just want to post things and have social accountability where you just post it on Facebook that, hey, I'm doing this, or you post it on Instagram, I'm doing this, ask me about it. Whatever it is, understand that if you can charge someone else, then it's kind of like you're not using your willpower and your discipline, you're using theirs. They're going to check on you. They're going to make sure that you're staying on track. If you told someone that you wanted to get a certain promotion, if you were going to apply for that job and they just check with you every couple days to see if you applied for it, that's going to encourage you to apply. And so you just want to use someone, use me, use anyone that you trust, however you want to do it. Make sure you have someone to help you along your journey. Even if it's just someone to talk you off the ledge whenever you feel like defeated, you just had a really rough day. It's just good to have that person to talk to. Number five, we have the law of character. I'm a huge proponent that what is on the inside of you is what comes out. And if you want to create a change in your life, if you want to get the results that you want in your life, you are going to need to change the inside of you. Your beliefs create your actions, and your actions create your reality. I think that the idea that I'm doing this because I'm interested and I care about what's going on, or I want to make a lot of money, I think that these external motivations matter, but a lot more often the internal motivations is truly what moves the needle. It's the things that kind of last outside of time. And one study I remember reading, it talked about just instilling hope, just a little bit of hope in people, and how drastically that improves their life. And so this was in India, and they basically just gave a random group of people 1 hour of comedy, and then they give the other half of the people 1 hour of motivational. And the people that had the 1 hour of motivational, they went home and they invested money in their kids to make sure that they could have a better life, or they got an extra job so they can make more money. And it's just the idea that you can instill some hope. And then they went a step further in the same study where they ended up giving everyone like a cow, or yeah, I think they gave everyone one cow, and just as a little bit of hope changed things. Where now they're plowing fields or they're working a little bit harder. It's just the idea that if you have certain characteristics inside of you, they will come out. And this also ties with your mental energy. There's nothing more mentally draining than being someone that you are not. So if you have to make a conscious decision all the time where it's like, oh, I don't really think this, but I'm going to act like I think this, well, that is a conscious decision, right? We're trying to automate some things so you can save your mental energy. Whenever you're making conscious decisions, that's draining it. So if you're not being genuine to yourself, then that means you are making tons of conscious decisions, and that's going to catch up to you. Just be you, as authentic as you can. I'm going to keep preaching that. It's going to make things so much easier for you. We also have the law of catalyst. And so if the law of character is your internal motivations, the law of catalyst is your external motivations. It's the idea that whatever's happening in my life, whether it's positive or negative, whether it moves me closer to my goal or further away from my goal, I'm going to make the next best decision possible. I call this positive event stacking in the book, and it's just the idea that even though things may not go exactly as you want, it doesn't mean that you cannot make something better out of it, right? The idea that you turn lemons into lemonade. And as long as you have that confidence and that trust, and you're always going to make the next best decision, then you're always going to end up in the right place. And I tell the story, I mean, I tell multiple stories, but I just tell the story of the founding of Mattel, and just the idea that they were poor, struggling, and that they were just like had this one company that was really successful, and they ended up losing that company because they brought in investors and it created a lot of argument, and they ended up selling for pennies on the dollar of what the company was worth and what they actually owned in it, just so they could start over. And they started over making wooden frames, and just on the side they were making wooden doll furnitures for the doll houses. And that's when they realized we're making more money making these wooden doll furniture than we are selling any of these wooden frames. And so they made the decision, well, let's just go all in on the dolls. And then they created Barbie, named after their daughter. And then they created Ken a few years later, named after their son. And then that, is basically history. They throw on Hot Wheels a few years later, and then Mattel is one of the top global toy producers in the entire world. But that started from them losing their one company and just making wooden frames. You really have to understand, and I can't stress it enough, that just because things don't always go exactly your way, just because it seems like you're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get where you need to be. Sometimes what ends up happening is we start with these misconceived notions and we think we know exactly what we want. But as you go on the journey, you start realizing, I actually want that. And I'll be more fulfilled. I'll be more satisfied with that. And what I thought I wanted, that's maybe what society told me I should want. And so I say all this to say that if you start the journey, look at it like going through fog. If you're standing outside of the fog, you can't see on the other side. There's nothing you can do about that. But if you're willing to take a couple steps forward, what happens? You're able to see a couple more steps through the fog. It's like the fog clears the more steps you take. The more actions you take clears the fog. So I'm just encouraging you to keep walking, and before you know it, you'll be on the other side looking back at the fog behind you. You just have to understand the law of catalyst. You're just going to do the next best decision as you possibly can. And then we end with the law of courage. And the law of courage is very simple. Once you have the mindset in place, once you have the processes in place, once you have your motivation in place, it's just time to take action. But we end up getting in that analysis of paralysis. We start wondering, oh, am I going to fail? Right? The fear of failure. We start wondering, is this going to cost me all of my money? And then what if I don't make anything within the time that I need? Fear of uncertainty. What if I'm just not cut out for this? The fear of self-doubt. If you really think about it, there's lots of reasons not to do something, and there's really only one reason to do it. Because you're passionate about it. Because you want to do it. And instead of continuing to analyze things and be stuck in this idea that I'm going to get this perfect item and I'm going to get this perfect situation where I have all the time I need to study, where I have the perfect job and the perfect career and the perfect house, just take action. Have the courage to be like, you know what, I may mess up, I may fail. The other half of that is success. I'm going to learn from each failure to gain my success. I'm going to adapt and be willing to change. I'm not going to allow fear and self-doubt to hold me stagnant in my life. And if you want to change your life, then you already know that there's going to be lots of people around you that are driven by fear, and you're going to be driven by faith. And that's going to make you look a little crazy, a little naive to some, but not to me. Not to those who understand that you have exactly what it takes to create your dream life. You just have to take the steps to do it. And now close real quick. We'll go over the 7 laws again. We have the law of concept, which is the idea that you're going to develop your vision, create your plan, and build just the overall mindset that you need. Outline some of the beliefs that you have, remove some of those false beliefs. Number 2, you're going to have the law of consciousness. You're just going to focus on what matters. You're going to reframe some of those filters where you're able to start observing and seeing these things that actually matter to you. Then you move into the law of checks, and you put the processes in place to save your mental energy so that you don't revert back to your old lifestyle. Number 4 is the law of charge. You're going to get someone that is able and willing and wants to help you, whether that is a coach, a mastermind, or social accountability. Just make sure you add someone to help you on your change journey. Number 5, you have the law of character. And within that, very simple, you're going to work on the internal motivations that you have so that they are there when things get really difficult. Because while as much fun as it is to be motivated by the idea of getting rich, it's not something that will last. You have to be motivated by something more than that. Number 6, we have the law of catalyst. And that's your external motivation. It's just the idea that I'm going, and every time something happens, I'm going to make the next best decision. We call that positive event stacking. And the final law, number 7, is the law of courage. And that's just the idea that once you have everything that you need, once you have a plan in place, once you have the proper mindset, once you have the systems in place and you have your motivations checked, you just got to take action. You got to get up and go. No more thinking about it. Let's go ahead and get up and go. I'm always thankful for our time together. If you enjoyed this, I encourage you to go over to uforecasthope.com. That's the letter U, forecasthope.com. Sign up for a free membership. In there, we'll have some live coaching sessions. We'll go over some confidence and we'll also go over some strategies to help you accomplish the goals that you have in your life. We also have some book strategy sessions where I just pick a book that I'm reading and I share some of the techniques that they share that we can implement in our life to help get the results that we want. And we also just have the overall one lucky person each month will just get a hot seat mastermind where you focus and drill down on exactly the change you want to create in your life and how we can help you to do it. We will create that bridge on the spot, custom for you to get you from where you are to where you want to be. And there's tons of resources and also private community. It's great in there. I just encourage you to go ahead and join and get your free membership now. If that is anything that I can do for you, if there is anything that I can do for you, feel free to ask me in the community. You can also email me, reach out to me. I'm on a lot of the social media platforms. I do love helping. That's why I do this. That is my internal motivation. That is my law of character. I genuinely want to help people, and it pushes me. And it's been helping me so far, and it's going to keep pushing me, and it's going to keep helping me. If you need anything, if you just have a quick question, always reach out to me. It's Andre at forecasthope.com. Andre with a U, U-N-D-R-E. But until next time, continue blessings on your journey to become the champion of your dream life.